What's up, everyone? Welcome back to StrangeCast, a podcast made by fans for Life is Strange fans. I am one of your co-hosts, Adnan. I'm joined by my other lovely co-host, Adam. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm doing super well. I got my first shot of the vaccine. Things are good. I'm about to try kombucha for the first time live on this show. Never had it before, but you know, it seems like a good way to test it out here on Life is Strange show. It tastes fine. I don't know what everybody's talking about, but okay, let's go. It does taste like mushrooms, doesn't it?
We got a very exciting episode ahead, as you've just seen from a sneak preview there. But surprisingly, Adam, a lot talked about, because obviously when we've told everyone who's watching the show now kind of tunes in regularly, we do it 2 weeks because we don't know how much news is going to come out about things. And sometimes like we pull at strings with some things. We kind of like want to, balance the show out a bit. We actually got surprising a lot of news this time around.
Yeah.
So same as like the last episode, I'll run you through some of the news as well. And we're going to go to our lovely French friends, Dontnod, Life is Strange developer. Big news from them, which was that they are publishing a third-party game. It's going to be a new title. So this is off IGN that I'm reading, which is Rebecca Valentine. She put, Dontnod is embracing a new direction. It's amping up its publishing arm so it can publish games made by other studios, beginning with a new title from PortaPlay. Today, the Life is Strange developer announced it would publish a brand new game from the developer of drunken zombie fighting game Broken Lines. Details about what this new game is have yet to be revealed. The PortaPlay head of development, Hans von Nuskova, I'm going to butcher his name, said in a statement that on the studio, quote unquote, called to work on gaming with meaning, with a focus on storytelling, quote unquote, about individual in crisis situations, tackling moral dilemmas. So again, like there's still a little couple of things in between the press release, not a huge amount on there. And also in a statement, Dontnod's head of publishing, Xavier Spinner, said in a statement, as a publisher, we want to offer players experience that are both accessible to the wider audience while setting the bar high regarding themes and quality of design. From our first discussion with PortaPlay, it became clear to us that co-producing and publishing this original creation would allow us to expand our portfolio with a game complementary to our in-house productions while remaining true to our DNA. So that's big news. Adam, I want to start with you. Where do you take with this news?
I think it's the right move by their part. Of course, they've always been, not always been, but they have been self-publishing some titles. They have experience in it, and I'm sure they know the business model involved. They know that it's going to trek in more money into this. There's a lot to this article that's pointing out some really good things. First and foremost, it opens up to set out another branch in Asia, since Tencent not bought out, but put in some money into them. Yeah, like a minority stake into them. So it opens up a wide door. What's really interesting about that article is that they're opening up two different departments into Dontnod to publish it, to make sure that it has the success of still self-publishing. The two being marketing and publishing, so that they don't have to focus in on marketing, but there's another department doing marketing and another one doing publishing. So it seems like they're doing all the right moves, and they really thought this out, which bless your heart, you actually thought something out. But it's really cool though. It's the right move.
Yeah, I agree with that, because like it makes sense in terms of like this is they are a Copenhagen-based indie developer, and I didn't expect them to partner up with a big developer for this project, because they are still Dontnod's in kind of like a weird transitional phase with, like, obviously you saw with Bandai Namco, they kind of self-published Twin Mirrors, and that was kind of like still like they're still kind of dabbling in that territory, and I don't think they have the finance to kind of like go big with another studio and kind of like publish their game. And obviously it makes sense as well when we look back on the Tencent news, which again is quite polarizing because of Tencent's position and like what else they'll be doing. But either way, it kind of makes sense with the funding that they got from that. But I don't think it's directly that funding that's going to go into this game, but like, you know, just investment wise. So like I'm intrigued about where they keep going from this. Obviously, like we've talked about before, they have so many games in development. They're now publishing this game. I think, like, as well in the news as well, if you've been following some of the Montreal crew as well, Dontnod Montreal's, they've recruited heavily in the last couple of weeks / months. So I have full feeling that their game is now full swing in development. After like a period of like kind of like concept and everything else that they were doing, now they kind of like, you know, the wheels are turning there. But yeah, I'm keen on it. I like the fact that, you know, as Dontnod, that they're kind of humble beginnings of like as a developer, that they're kind of offering a leaning arm to another nice indie developer and kind of giving them the investment, in terms of like, you know, because of like how Dontnod exploded it with Life is Strange, but in terms of they're giving this kind of opportunity to. So I'm very excited for it. And it's not Life is Strange free, so we can.
I mean, are we sure though? Are we sure? Because, you know, it's a little secret. They're heavily recruiting, and now they got publishing. So you know, they're getting ready for something big coming in. So you never know.
You never know.
You know, record showing for the podcast. I mean, I do agree with you, Adnan, that I think Life is Strange 3 is an unlikely scenario, but also a fourth stimulus check in America is an unlikely scenario. So it's not out of the mix, like both things, but don't hold your breath for both things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of in the same vein as you after our first episode. I feel like they have got it in development in one of their studio sections, but God only knows, that's just my speculation. And this is a podcast as well. I'm not like trying to confirm anything, but I have a funny feeling with that. But, you know, for context, we are recording this on the 16th of April, and as is the custom with stuff like this, something comes along, and this was big news because it came out of nowhere. And it's very interesting as well, because I pulled up IGN's article because there's a couple of things I want to pull out from this one that you might find interesting, Adam. So we're going to talk about Square Enix said that it's not for sale after acquisition rumors. This, as I said, it came out of nowhere. So this is Joe Screbbles at IGN, and they wrote there. So it said, Square Enix has said it will not consider selling the company and has not received any offers after a report claimed, quote unquote, multiple potential buyers were interested in an acquisition. So CTFN reported that two bankers had indicated that several potential buyers were interested in purchasing the developer and publisher behind Final Fantasy and Outriders. Bloomerang Japan then reported the news, which led to Square Enix responding. Square Enix said in a press release, and I quote, Bloomerang has reported today that there is interest from several buyers to acquire Square Enix. However, this report is not based on any announcement by Square Enix Holdings Co. Limited. We do not consider selling off the company or any part of its business, nor have we received any offer from any third party to acquire the company or any part of its business, end quote. So in that as well, IGN point out a couple of other things that I want to read into. They wrote, it is of course possible that both sides of the story are true. There may well be parties interested in Square Enix, and Square Enix itself might be unwilling to sell. That said, analyst David Gibson pointed to the idea that this could be bankers trying to, quote unquote, drum up business, end quote, in Square Enix. To back up Gibson's idea, Bloomerang subsequently reported that shares in Square Enix rose by 12% after the report went out, the highest rise in 8 months. So that's kind of like why I wanted to bring up IGN's article, because I think they made two really good points there to add to this conversation. As I said, came out of the blue, out of absolutely nowhere. This was Square Enix was trending on Twitter. Obviously, big crowd control from them. Adam, what was your reaction like when you heard this news?
It was very blunt. We've seen a lot of different rumors in the gaming industry, and sometimes companies will say a very blanket statement. Oh, this is based on nothing, or this is based on you don't even know. I remember when, especially Pete Hines, he was on a stream. I think it was like an Elder Scrolls card game. I forget which one it was. And somebody said to him like, "Oh, Starfield." But he puts out this blanket statement saying like, "You don't even know what Starfield is. You know who's making it." Blah 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 blah. He never blankly states it. We got Starfield. This one, however, was very. I put in my notes, it's very blunt. It's very flat, just saying it's based on nothing. Nobody said anything. We didn't say anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was just a paragraph within a pretty much a memo to like anybody who's in the Business Insider, basically to Bloomberg. This is the shocking part of this, is that Bloomberg Japan wrote about this. And Bloomberg is supposed to be like the heavy hitter in the Business Insiders kind of clientele here. They're supposed to be a really reliable source. We're not talking about, I don't know, an unreliable source such as Kotaku. But this is Bloomberg we're talking about. And they kind of put out the speculation, and Square Enix is like, nobody said anything. What are you talking about? And like what you said, it's crazy that the morning after they announced it, did you say 12% or 14%? I think it was 12%.
I believe it's 12%. I said 12%.
Yeah,
the highest rise.
If you don't know about that, 12% in a Japanese company within 24 hours is insane. That's an insane amount of jump for a stock. So Square Enix stocks jumped up when they said nobody said anything about selling the company. It's just very plain and simple that the whole rumors that Microsoft might be buying out Square Enix or Enix. There's no rumors that PlayStation's gonna buy out. They said it plain and simple. There's no rumors to be had. And I respect them for that. You know, I respect them from a business standpoint.
Yeah, it's effective ground control. They had to kind of come out because they can't leave a rumor like this flowing. In itself, I think there's no bad publicity in this for Square Enix. It's kind of benefited them because like the minute there's a takeover acquisition or kind of like a buyout acquisition, this has just sent their stock through the roof. And usually stuff like this happens, like you'll see effects on it. If anyone's interested in football or soccer, depending on our audience.
Soccer, you say? I know what you're talking about now.
Just for context with that, when FIFA lost its rights to Juventus in the game, the licensing rights and stuff, they saw a massive, I think it was like maybe I remember writing about this a while ago, it was like 600 million or something that was wiped off EA's stock market value. Right, yeah. Because obviously Cristiano Ronaldo's there, so like that kind of like puts into the factor of like a massive superstar not having the licensing of the club that they have there. So this kind of like makes sense that their stock value gets affected by it. Square Enix have sent out these kind of statements before, from off the top of my head, like past news stories. They're quite blunt with stuff like this, like whether it's like true or not, they're just like, we don't respond to news like this. And you're like right about Bloomerang as well, because when I saw that, I thought it was Jason Schreier at first from Bloomerang, but obviously Bloomerang Japan, I was like, okay, I'll bring myself back down, because if it was Jason Schreier, I'd be like, oh, all right. Like that takes him down a peg. Now Jeff Grubb is really rising up into what's that? No, it was Bloomberg Japan. Yeah. So yeah. So either way, it's very interesting because like that was a huge news from it. And I saw a lot of reaction from it. And I agreed with it. I'm like, I don't want Square Enix to be taken over by Sony, Nintendo, or Microsoft, because the Bethesda deal has left a big stain in my mouth. And I know that you're more of an Xbox fan. I'm more of a PlayStation person. But I have a very weird feeling with like third-party publishers, big ones, going first party with these kind of things, because like some of the games I'm like, and it would make no sense as well in the climate of things, because we have a Final Fantasy version announced exclusively for PlayStation. So imagine if it was like Xbox behind the scenes pulling this deal. I was like, hang on a minute, like, it's going to go.
It would be weird. I wouldn't. Again, coming from an Xbox fanboy, I also don't really care for the console wars. In fact, that's going to be the next Games Groceries episode. If Xbox bought Square Enix, I would feel very weird about that. I don't know why. With the Xbox Bethesda deal, that definitely fit in for the standards. Xbox Bethesda have always had that relationship, but it's always PlayStation Square Enix that had that kind of relationship. So if anybody's going to be bought out, exactly when PlayStation bought Insomniac, that fits so well. I was just like, wow, great, awesome. But for me, like what you said, I would rather Square Enix own themselves, because they're handling fine. And this article also pointed out that sure, they slipped up with Marvel's Avengers, and that's all they did. They slipped up. They thought it would work as a live service thing, games as a service, and it didn't. People didn't buy it, and they did buy it. I shouldn't say that. It actually topped the charts in September. They made one kerfuffle, but doesn't mean that they need to sell themselves. You know, it was just such a weird rumor altogether.
Yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, if you're listening as well, we're not saying that that Sony or Microsoft was in this apparent takeover acquisition. It's just within context of like a big publisher or big giant kind of taking control of it. But either way, it's still interesting because obviously, like in the last couple of years, and obviously with Ubisoft avoiding a hostile takeover. If you remember that in the news.
I remember that.
And with Bethesda and now Square Enix, and I think like Tencent, I have a funny feeling that they're going to play some big more moves in the industry in the next couple of years and stuff. I think like be warned for like how much influence you'll see them wield in the next couple of years and where they go with things. It's just interesting. It was very interesting news to break out and about Square Enix, who holds many, many IPs under its labels, including Life is Strange, for example.
Yes.
And to kind of like see where it would have gone if this takeover would have happened, who comes in, where's the direction of the company goes, who do they sell with? Imagine if Life is Strange 3 went exclusive on a different platform. But instead, like, Square Enix's priority is like, we'll partner with some people, for example, like Xbox for Tomb Raider, and do a timed exclusive content or timed exclusive release. But then Life is Strange is across all of the platforms. And I'm like that because their games are built for multi-platforms. They shouldn't be restricted to one console necessarily, unless they've obviously got a deal in place. And I kind of respect their position as a publisher in terms of how they're doing things. I don't, I'm not really keen on Final Fantasy VII getting released on PS5 because, like, we're just remastering and remaking of a game that's just been remade. But
cheddar. They're not getting bought, but they're making that cheddar.
Of course, it's the
easy money, man.
Yeah, it's good thing we're not a Last of Us podcast, because otherwise we'd have a conversation for field.
Oh, yeah. Life is strange,
So we'll stay away from that. Adam, should we move on to the next piece, which is quite interesting?
Yeah, I guess I said my piece on Square Enix. Yeah.
Cool. So we'll move on to a very exciting news. We're going to go finally into Life is Strange content. Yay! But those other topics we were covering because they're Life is Strange related. But this
Celebration kombucha drink. Hooray!
This one is specifically about True Colors, and it's very cool and interesting in terms of like how we unpack this, and I will unpack it. So let me read you the news.
Yes.
Life is Strange True Colors is getting a free prequel comic. They announced this on the Life is Strange Twitter feed. I'm going to Eurogamer with Tom Phillips. He wrote about it. So True Colors is going to get a comic published by Titan Comics for free comic book day. The volume includes 2 stories containing True Colors characters, as well as Life is Strange fan favorites from the past. As part of the ongoing Life is Strange graphic novel series, the comic book features Before the Storms, Steph Gingrich, in a story set between her appearance there and the upcoming True Colors, where she is fully returned. Life is Strange 1 stars Max and Chloe featuring it, of course, if you read the comics. Another story featuring True Colors lead character Alex Chen is also included, and follow her journey to the town of Haven Springs, where the upcoming game begins. Free comic book day is on the 14th of August. Adam, I'm going to kick this off because obviously I'm quite keen on Vicelli's comic series and like what they've been doing there. And obviously I haven't interviewed Emma. I was surprised, because like they've always established that the comic series is one canon, like is one one
I was
outcome
that,
yeah. So it's like they've always kind of like very much stressed that when they've like released comics saying like it's one alternative story that's happened. It's not necessarily the official canon. So I always kind of like say it's one canon story of it. But to kind of like go down this direction, be like, right, we're gonna obviously, as I've told you before, we've seen other characters from Life is Strange games appear in the comic series. And now it's like, we're going to bring Steph in it, but we're also going to do a True Colors prequel and in the comic series a month before release. And I was like, oh, did not expect that at all. Interested to see how it vibes in. Obviously, if you want to see some interesting reactions, go on the Twitter tweet and see how many people are so angry that Sean and Daniel have been snubbed once again.
I know, yeah. It's weird how they're being snubbed like this. As not a Life is Strange 2 fan, it's very off-putting. It's very weird, but they do them, whatever.
It's straight, like, I don't think Life is Strange 2 gets a bad rep. I think you don't have to like it, but I think like the characters of Sean and Daniel are fascinating for me. And the way that their story moves as well, I think like you could have seen, they just kind of seem neglected in terms of like all these other protagonists. And that's why I kind of get it. It's like, ooh, Rachel Amber, ooh, Max, hey, Chloe, hey, this person. It's like, and Sean and Daniel. Like, you're at the end, it's like, what? So obviously the reactions are played on that on the tweet if you want to go look at it. But either way,
Sure.
in general, I'm intrigued by it. I'm kind of cool by it. Obviously, a month beforehand, so I think we're going to hear so much more about this game leading up to release, and we'll get even more information. But I kind of like the fact that they're giving a bit more kind of context. Obviously, you have the Wavelengths episode, which is going to focus on Steph Gingrich and kind of like fill in the slots with her kind of like story. And then this kind of like gives you a bit more context on Alex Chen, a bit more extra filler content as well. And obviously free comic book day as well. Like, great initiative to do it. So I'm very intrigued by it. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm also interested to see it. And I like how this is coming into a comic book, which is free. So it's very accessible. For me, I don't know what my move will be. I know it's somewhere in August, so hopefully I get to. And that's the other thing. When I say that I don't know if I'll have the time for it, I have time to read. Usually comics take me about 15, 20 minutes to read, give or take. So it's very accessible. It's free to you, and it's going to give a prequel. And what I like about this is that it gives you the option for the prequel, rather than forcing the player to play maybe another 2 hours of a prequel. Maybe they want, and maybe they don't want. I'm not generally a fan of prequel exposition in movies or games. It's off-putting to me. But here we get the option for it. If I can. I'll let you go. And I got another observation, but I don't want to take over the mic here.
Yeah, bouncing off what you said, I like it because, like as you say, you can cut so much about the prequel stuff. Like at the same time, like when this game, the way it's told, like what we know so far, I'm not really interested about who Alex Chen is right now. Obviously, she's come to Haven Springs, so there's an intrigue about who she was before that. But
don't say that on Twitter, man. I don't care who Alex is. So we're just going to clip that. That's going to be on Twiter everywhere.
Should we just start no context StrangeCast and start tweeting out clips from that?
Yeah.
But I think like I'm kind of like with you, as you said. I think it's a little bit off strange as well, because like you'll be surprised how many people don't actually know there's a Life is Strange comic series. It's actually mad. Like I can't even underestimate that like statement to you, because even me and Emma were talking about it. Like so a bit of context, in one of the series arcs of Life is Strange, I feel like I've messed that up, because like Emma Vicelli kind of gave me a context like what they should be called. I'm completely messed up. But in one of them, there's drawings in the back of it which show like Rachel, Max, and Chloe in different designs and a little bit aged. And basically there's an editor's note saying that we didn't go with those designs and like for specific reasons, XYZ, ABC. And I asked Emma Vicelli about it, and she said, I think because if you're a Life is Strange fan, you walk in a comic book shop and you open up the comic, it's like these characters are a lot older. You're like, hang on a minute, this isn't Max and Chloe and Rachel. Kind of like Pokemon with Ash Ketchum. Ash Ketchum never ages in the comic series.
Yeah.
And in the comic series, in the anime series, they say specifically he doesn't age because, like, my generation who watch Pokemon have now grown up, and there's a new generation of Pokemon fans coming up. So why would we age Ash up to be like 25 when we keep him the same age? But then a new generation of audience can kind of like sync with that character. And if I get my nostalgia, so I completely understand it from that context. And not to waffle away, and I'll kind of come back to you now. In terms of, as I said, I'm interested by it. I will obviously read it because I want to know the little details about who she is, and maybe it'll give a bit more context going into the game. I don't think they're going to give a huge amount away, because it'd be mad to do that with a game that's not even necessarily episodic. It's all fully fledged now, released. It's they put it on the episodic banner, but it's not in my definition. So I'm definitely want to see how this rolls out, and especially with Steph. Like, will they say that Steph's canon in this? Is it not? Is it just one universe of it? But yeah, go back to where you were going to go from this.
Yeah, because I was going to even say that this kind of reminds me, as I was reading this article, and especially as you were talking, it's intriguing. It's to see like how this all plays out. The article states that it's to find out the journey of both Steph and Alex Chen and how they get to Haven, right? It definitely reminds me. I'm not sure how far ahead it came before the game. It was maybe a month or two before the game came out. But Titan, the same publishers that was making the comic books, put out a novel. So they put out a book, so a novelized book of the Spider-Man game. So Spider-Man PS4 was coming out, and Titan put out a novel. I bought it, and I thought it was going to be a graphic novel. And I'm like, you guys are a comic series and you give this what? I was just like, but I did read it. I picked it up on my Kindle and I started to read it. And once the game came out, because I read the prequel, it fleshed out the story more. It gave me a lot more context. But if you play the game, never reading the book, you kind of know what you're doing anyway. It wasn't very necessary, but it kind of fleshed things out even further. Be like, I get that. It made it more filled out, and I think that's what Titan's going to do for this one. I think I remember them doing it for an Assassin's Creed game. I can't remember.
Yeah, they had. It might not be in Titan, but obviously with any kind of series, like Gears of War had like novel series, Metal Gear had them, Assassin's Creed had them. I don't know when within time, obviously off the top of my head, I don't know the time frame they were released, but they've definitely done these kind of like in the same vein as Life is Strange, where it's like releasing some kind of like visual novel, graphic novel book in that kind of capacity.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think it will flesh out a story more, but I don't think it will be completely mandatory. But I do appreciate that it's going out on Free Comic Book Day, and it is a comic book, so it's very accessible versus a novel that I had to purchase. That's way less accessible. But I do appreciate the route they're going for this one.
Yeah, it's I'm all keen for it, and I'm just, as I said, like I'm very surprised that they were kind of tying in the comic series within the actual like full game series when they were kind of like they're keeping them at arm's length, and now it kind of feels like it's actually mashing together, but not in the canon sense. It's like, oh yeah, here's a bit more with the new game. I'm interested, and I'll keep my open mind for it. So instead of going in full circles with that and keep saying that we're interested by it, I want to move on to the next topic, which is a interview that Life is Strange YouTube uploaded, which was with Novo Amor, and he says a lot in that. I didn't take all the notes from it because there was so much to talk about. And he used to talk about the music in general, him writing Haven, the song, and like it was fascinating. Obviously, I love hearing a musician's what's the word now? A musician's perspective on Life is Strange, because music is so instrumental to this series as well. It's like everyone loves Daughter, everyone loves Sid Matters, like they've become integral parts of the series. So very interesting to hear his take on it. But specifically, I pulled out one part, and I imagine it's going to be either the title of this video or it's going to be something we're going to mention, which is that he said, and I confirmed in this, that you can listen to music as Alex Chen in the game. And in terms of you can go and visit a record store. So and I quote, transcribed this. Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
So you look at that. Full on assist.
Yeah, right. I'm always prepared for this, though, man.
Amazing. Yeah. So actually, before I get to you, Adam, so he said in the quote, I transcribed it. So he said, she's really into music, and there's a record store in the game which you can go and listen to music, which I really love. End quote. It was a little bit more lengthy, but I took that away. Adam, I sent you this because this is very interesting as a kind of like, nice little, it wasn't like, they posted on Twitter and be like, this is going to be a feature in the game. And we kind of like, based on what we've talked about in the first episode, music's going to be a big factor in this,
yes,
in this game. But what were your thoughts when you found out that he said that you can kind of go into a record store and listen to music?
I had a lot of thoughts about this video. In fact, I watched it about 10 times. I'm going to be honest with you. Just because, one, music always fascinates me. I wanted to be a professional musician when I was growing up, kind of fell out of it. And this video made me buy new acoustic guitar strings. I'm going to be picking up music again. So it just made me jealous. I was just like, not jealous of his career, but I was like, I should have stuck with it. But what it made me realize that this is going to be a very impactful part, right? Because we always have those times in Life is Strange where we get to sit down. Like in the first Life is Strange, you get to sit down in front of the Fountain of Blackwell before the storm. There's definitely parts we can just lay in bed and listen to that. There's definitely moments in the Life is Strange universe where you get to just sit and observe. There's nothing more. Life is Strange 2 with the drawing, it's not really sitting and observing, but it still is. This route is taking it to a more deliberate route where you get to sit and I would imagine you get to select music. You know, it's actually, like I said, it's more deliberate rather than picking a spot, sit down, and here's the curated music, here's the curated images, but you get to select the sit down and listen. So I do appreciate that. I love what Novo Amor was saying, that music, especially in Life is Strange, is more emotional. It's not trying to get you to like bop with it, which is an emotion, but it's getting you to just like actually intentionally listen to something and actually trying to figure out how it makes you feel with. And I like what he said, for you to describe how the music makes you feel and why it makes you feel, like a technical spectrum of it. He doesn't care about that. And I don't think Life is Strange music is meant to be technical. I don't think it's meant to be, you know, oh, why does it make you feel this way? It's just, you know, intentionally listen to it and for you to feel something. So I do like how this is like that, where there's a lot of that intention involved. And to go in that record store, listen to music, I think for me, I'm just like, yes, let's go. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, it's a cool little feature. And like you said, with what he said about music is really fascinating. Because one of the things that really stands out for me is the first Life is Strange game. It's episode 1 when, you know, Max collapses after she rewinds time, and like Chloe's asking, like, you know, what's the matter, Max? Like, tell me. Yes. And she's like, then she kind of opens up about power, and then you have Sid Meier's obstacle play, and it has a montage and stuff. Yes. That's the feeling. That was nothing else. You saw, like, it was all telling the story of, like, that was Life is Strange for me. Like, if anyone ever said to me, what's Life is Strange, I'd show them that scene where it's like, you see all the faces, you see the reactions, you see all these characters you've interacted with, like where they're at that point in the story. You know, Max and Chloe have this heartfelt moment where she kind of opens up to her about her powers and everything else. And then you have like Sid Meier's obstacle playing in the background. The music's just so soft and like, oh, like that music's so good. Sid Meier's is so good. But like, generally, like what Novo Amor is saying is true. And like they did this with Tell Me Why, which I liked, in terms of like when Ryan Locke came in, the composing the soundtrack, the kind of songs that they use for music. When it's done well, it's always amazing, and it's always shown in like stuff with. Do you remember when the Assassin's Creed movie was coming out and they had that really god awful Kanye West music in the background of it, and then someone on YouTube took that trailer, took the music out of it, and then replaced it with Ezio's theme, and then they re-uploaded it and went viral. And when you listen to it, people are like, "Why is this not the trailer?" It's like it might be that might be Ezio's theme, but that is so iconic. I listen to it on my iPhone when I'm like walking around sometimes, because it's just like that. I don't want to get struck by copyright, but like, you know, the way it builds up, the way kind of like music. I've obviously, like, you know, as I said before, I'm a huge Metal Gear Solid fan. Like music's always a big factor for me, and when you use it right, it's great. And like with a game like Life is Strange True Colors, from what we've seen so far in the world premiere trailer that they did, where like, you know, Steph's like, she's like, this one's for you, and like in front of the microphone, we obviously know music's going to be a big part of this game, and it's going to be like a lot more. I think like you're going to connect with it. I think that's the kind of connection they want to build with it. I think like you'll see Alex kind of like show a lot of her emotions through music, and not like the way she feels about everything. And I'll pass this back to you, but I've kind of like really always been happy with how music's used and stuff. Like, I don't like The Last of Us Part 2 as a game. I really don't like it, but I do like the scene with Ellie where you can go into the shop and you can play the guitar and like the music hits. And the same with Beyond Two Souls with like Jodie when she's sitting there and she's playing Homeless on the street. There's always that emotional resonance with me where I'm like, yes, I love this. It's always worked well. I've never seen it not work well in that kind of case. But yeah, like I feel like this is going to definitely do it this. So that's my kind of perspective on like him confirming this. I was very happy when he confirmed this, because like I can imagine just sitting there sometimes in my room, leaving my TV on, Alex Chen vibing and having a music track in the background.
Yeah, totally. That I think that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to just allow you to just take in a bit of music. And I don't think games are, you know, they're what was I going to say? It's not that they're not allowed to do that. Put that as what you want to do. But games don't always have to be action. It can be just, you know, feel something. It can be just sit down and chill for a little bit. But I do like this, and I do appreciate that Novo Amor is more going for the adaptive soundtrack too. Much like a record store, he's going in for that vibe of a record store. You want to get that kind of feel for a record store. They can just pick up anything and sit it down. It's not about making you bop. It's not about making you cry intentionally. Like they're not trying to do that, but they're just saying, listen to music and let the scene play out. You know, I do like that about this video. Again, saw about 10 times. I was so enthralled by the way Nova was.
I feel like it hits home for me more because I'm like a 90s kid. So like when you see like records, it's cool. Because I imagine if it's a kid nowadays, he might be like, Spotify, like why are they in this record store? Like stick Spotify.
Oh yeah. I don't subscribe to Spotify ever, but I don't have a pro plan.
I just think it gives personality for me. And it adds like that kind of extra layer. And I think like that's Life is Strange 2 necessarily was hit and miss with music sometimes, like with the it didn't have that same, obviously, because it's a different game, and that's why I respect Life is Strange 2 a lot. I don't like hate on it the way some people do. I like its individuality, like in this kind of like in this
it is its own thing, you know.
Yeah, right. So as I said, like, you know, this was a perfect kind of like thing to talk about, and obviously I went to send this into the topic of the show, which I thought was fascinating. You know, what songs, Adam, would you like to see on the soundtrack of True Colors / in this record store? I'm going to kind of go to you first because you've got a better music background on this. What would be the ideal scenario? Obviously, we're talking just about our personal picks as well, because like God only knows how expensive it is to license music. But like, you know, which songs would you like to see? Like, you want to pick up there?
So I got 3. Do you? How many do you have?
Mine's hit and miss. I picked like 1 or 2 tracks. Then I was like specifically thinking about other things I'd like to see in this track in the record stores, kind of like vibe into this game.
Let's go back and forth. I'll start with mine, but first, before I go with my first pick, I talked about, I think it was on the first episode, that I have the vinyl from Before the Storm, the Daughter album. Is the actual vinyl, and what I love about this is the color they chose for the actual vinyl. It's a nice little gray kind of press. It's very nice. It's very pretty. But I did want to show it off before I get into my first one. That yes, I do have the vinyl. My first track is I wanted to go for a more Life is Strange-esque kind of vibe, and I went for it. I'm going to go with Dream Album, but if we can only have one track, I did one track on that album. And it's an album by Rue Haynes. And I think people who like this show will like Rue Haynes. I think he has that Life is Strange-esque to him, but it's an album called Paperweights. And I think it's nice and fluid, but the one track, if I could get one track on it, it's the second track on the album called Corner of My Eye. I like the way it builds. I like the slow starts, and there gets to be some vocal louds to it. I think it really sparks some emotion, and it has different ranges to it. So I would say Rue Haynes' Paperweights, but the dream track would be Corner of My Eye. Adnan, what do you think? Or what's your pick?
Yeah, very good shout. Very interesting. So I'd like that. It definitely fit in with the vibe of it. My first one is going to be based on bias, purely on bias, and I kind of mentioned it before because I said that I'd love to see it as a bias
pick too. Don't worry.
I said that I'd love to see her as a composer of this game. It would be a track from Hayley Williams' Petals for Armor album, which I feel like I was a big fan of Simmer when she released that. And I think there was just something about the tempo, the way that the music was orchestrated, just beyond her vocals, which are unreal anyway. I think like the tempo of that song was like really quite built, and I feel like you could listen to it with. Obviously, I still don't know like where Alex Chen is emotionally, but obviously with the idea of empathy, she can feel people's emotions. That song just shows like so much emotions when like Hayley Williams was talking about, she's like, rage is like da da da, and the way she delivers it. I think like I would honestly like lose my shit if I heard a song from her on there. I think she's just built for it, and she's like, she's obviously been in a game before, Guitar Hero World Tour, and her songs have been in other games as well from Paramore. But this specifically, her solo outing, Petals for Armor, and her other work that she's done as well. I can't remember what the other album's called, the follow-up says. I would definitely be keen to see that. That would be like a dream track for me. Maybe if it doesn't fit or not, I'd specifically want it. That I'd freak out about it.
Oh my God, yeah. I think Hayley Williams and Paramore all together, they're just an underrated band, in my opinion. Like underrated since the early 2000s. Like nowadays, it's like, but talking about vibes, not me personally. But yeah, I agree with you, man. That'd be great.
I think specifically, especially if you look at her albums with After Laughter and then the self-titled Paramore album, some of the songs on there, like Ain't It Fun, channels that Christian kind of like side that they love, even with the choir that you hear in the background, which is like great. And then obviously with After Laughter as well, you hear some of the, which song is it now? Hard Times, with like the xylophone and everything else like that. It's just like, it's so cool. I love when any song, even like with Dua Lipa, when she goes back to like some of the 80s and the weekend, they go back to like the 80s kind of like music synchronized style, and the 90s, I'm all for it. Like I like new music, but at the same time, like obviously, born in the 90s, I'm all for stuff like that. Completely random as well. I'm sorry to throw this completely off topic. I watched The Terminator, the first one again recently. What a film. Nice. Unbelievable. And there's that great scene where Sarah Connor walks into the club because she's getting followed by Kyle Reese, and it kind of like pans and it shows all the people dancing there. It has the music on. I was like, oh my God, I feel so nostalgic. I was like, oh, that music is just like, I was like, oh, and the music of that film as well. It's like when Terminator's chasing, it's like dun 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 dun, and it's like, it's so. I love things like when music suits something. Matrix, the music suits it so well, and then obviously like Terminator, music suits it well. That's what I want True Colors to be like, when the music's like so in sync with the game. You're like, oh my God, it's bringing that resonance of whether it's like a certain kind of vibe you want to bring. But yeah, let's move back to you though, because obviously I've taken this completely off the track with Paramore and onto like Terminator and everything else.
I agreed with you, so I was on that train with you, man. You set off, and I just jumped on at the last second there. I'm gonna go again with like an album that I would love to see in the record store, but then also if we only get one track on each album, I got you. And I'm going for more Life is Strange vibe here, but in 2019, an album came out, right? And it was by a band called Backseat Lovers. And they're kind of an indie pop band. The whole album in of itself, the album I'm talking about is When We Were Friends. And I don't think the album itself has Life is Strange vibes, but I like their tone. I like how honest and raw they are. I like the mix of tracks. It sounds like it was recorded in a garage, but in a good way. I don't know how to explain it. But if I had to pick one track on When We Were Friends by Backseat Lovers, it has to be Olivia. I think it's the second to last track on the album, but it's a nice, calm, nice little love story to it. And it talks about her life and, how she's not treated well and how, he's observing that. And I think Olivia from Backseat Lovers would definitely be a good take, but I would just love to see When We Were Friends by Backseat Lovers as the album in the record store. But, whatever. Not my call, but,
Hey, that music, like the vocals, like talk to me. Is it like very like soothing vocals, and then like is the music very acoustic? Like where?
No, it's is it soothing? No, it's not screaming. It's definitely like got a yell to it. It's definitely from the heart. It starts out acoustic. A lot of the tracks do start out acoustic, and then some electrics come in, but it sounds soothing. It's not punk music. It's definitely not that. It's not pop music, but it's definitely just got that raw edge to it where it doesn't sound. What do I want to say? It doesn't sound processed. If I'm trying to say that right, it doesn't sound processed. It's just a guy belting out from his heart. In fact, the second track of the album of When We Were Friends is called Poolside. I want to say it's called Poolside. It's just some friends talking about each other. Like, this next track is called this. And he's like, no, it's called Poolside. Oh, sorry, it's Poolside. And they just start playing it. It just sounds very raw. And it doesn't sound like amateur either. It just sounds like a really great take on an album. And I love the way they did it. But again, it's called When We Were Friends by Backseat Lovers. Definitely check that one out. But it's specifically Olivia. That's a good track.
Do you know what? I like when I hear music that I've never heard before from other people, because I'm like, that's what I love about Life is Strange. Because, like, as I said, Sid Matters and like kind of like the tracks that they pulled off the first game and even the Daughter soundtrack, I was like, I'm all for. And obviously, like, When You Call, I've been listening to like for the better part of like since the reveal like 100 times a day. Which I'm like, again, it's like music where I've not listened to it before. And I'm like, I'm hooked on it. So I like that you've gone for that pick. So the next one's a bit of an interesting one. So obviously I've worn Bob Dylan for a reason for this one, because my next pick.
Hey, I almost put Bob Dylan on my list.
So I'm going to go, this is sacrilegious as well, because like with what I'm going to say. So I'd like Bob Dylan on there, but I'd like, for me specifically, my favorite song's Like a Rolling Stone. I think it'd fit this game really well, but I would like it to be a cover version by someone, because, so let me take you this, because like nothing against Dylan, obviously. I love Bob Dylan. The song is like, for me, it's like unbelievable. And I always find like if you're going to cover some people as well, like Johnny Cash, Bob Dylan, some artists are like just near impossible to do an incredible cover. But when they released Gears of War 4 and they were doing the build up for it, I think she's called Lissy. She did the cover for Nothing Else Matters by Metallica. And they used her cover for it. And Metallica's Nothing Else Matters is one of my favorite songs ever. And her cover, I think, is outstanding. She adds her own kind of like way with it. It keeps the same Metallica vibe, but with her own vocals, she's really, really brilliant. I think it's fantastic. I want that kind of like twist to it, where they bring someone else in who's like an artist. They kind of done it with Creep as well already, but they've kind of like, you know, it's not specifically Radiohead doing that, but like I'd like that, where it'd be like a Rolling Stone, but by an artist. And even if you want to like give an artist a break, I'd be like, that'd be quite cool. So like my second choice would be Like a Rolling Stone, Bob Dylan / someone covering his song / an independent musician getting a chance of like covering the song. I think that'd be such a cool vibe. It'd be like so cool. It'd be so cool. But that would be my.
I agree with you that I think covers get a bad rap, where a lot of people say like, oh, you can't cover this. Oh, you can't touch that. I was part of that camp back in the day, but I've got one thing. I'm too old. I know I'm only 30 years old, but at the same time, it's just like, I like enjoying things now. I like liking things now. I don't really have that kind of edge to me, like, oh, you can't cover this. But I do agree with you, especially with Creep with Radiohead. A lot of, or even Painted Black, that song. Covers work really well when you take the song and you give it your taste to it. For example, this past Christmas, one of my favorite bands, Point North, I was going to say Point Blank, but Point North covered Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You. And they did it in, it was great. I like that cover because it was a Point North, All I Want for Christmas Is You. It wasn't Point North adapting to Mariah Carey's sound. It was, they took that and they kind of went through their game engine and popped out. So I agree with you that an indie artist covering that song would fit super well with Life is Strange. I agree with you there.
The cover debate is like hard, because I was exactly the same with you. What I don't like is hearing someone try to be Johnny Cash or be Bob Dylan. That's like
you can't do that.
Yeah, it's like, do you know, like Alien Ant Farm got a lot of bad rep for Smooth Criminal, but when you watch it as just, when you listen to it as just Alien Ant Farm by Smooth Criminal, playing Smooth Criminal, it's like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like, what they do. I don't like when I watch musicians like at like a pub or something else like that, and they're trying to be Johnny Cash and putting the voice. It's like, you're not Johnny Cash. You'll never be Johnny Cash. Everyone thinks he's cool. The Man in Black is cool, but like, it takes a lot of swagger to pull that off. And there's only one person who can pull that swagger off, and he's not here anymore. So that's where my thing is with that. But like, specifically, I'd like that kind of like, I think it'd be cool. It would open a really good opportunity for someone. And I think like that would be massive for them as well. Like, I'm not just saying, just give some random person what they can, because like you see,
well-established artists, it's them not proving themselves, but Yeah.
And I mean, like, I don't know how in tune you are with the actual universe. That Riley Hawk does a lot of music based on Life is Strange. She was quite, and like that's what I mean. Like, why would you not want to put her music in there? Like, I've listened to some of her tracks, and they're unbelievable. It's so fucking good. Yeah. Like, I don't care about swearing in this podcast, but like, it's so good. And I feel like that would be like the ultimate service you'd give someone, and especially if like, her to be like, oh, can you come in, we'll get licensing for this song, we'll record it, everything that you've done for the fandom, your involvement in it. It's like, yeah, cool. And it might sound like I'm copying out and be like, oh, I didn't pick another track from it, but I just think it'd be such a cool opportunity to give it back to the people that have like made the franchise as big as it is, give someone a massive break into the industry, you know, all that kind of good jazz. So that's where I stand on that. I'll take it back to you for your final pick.
My final pick, and this is my bias pick. I don't care if it fits in, but I try to practice minimalism. So I try to keep only things that I completely valued. And so from those things that I very much treasure, right? This one thing is probably from what I own, my top 3 like most prized possessions, right? It is the actual George Harrison All Things Must Pass from 1970. Don't ignore that price tag because it was actually given to me as a gift, and I couldn't believe it. I just stared at it for a clean hour. I'm like, this is the one from 1970. And I opened it up and I smelled it. It smelled like 1970. I got a little high, and and I absolutely adore this album because, of course, this is George Harrison breaking off from the Beatles. And I think, from my opinion, not objectively, but I think this is what, you know, George Harrison put into place. This is where you get to see George Harrison's sound. It's the album called All Things Must Pass. I did look it up. It is on Spotify. It's the remastered 2014 edition, but you know, it's there if you want to listen to all 2 hours of the album. But I absolutely adore this album. But if we can't get this 2-hour album in the game, and you can't just sit there for 2 hours and listen to George Harrison's All Things Must Pass, might be about like an hour and a half. Who knows? All I know is that there's 3 vinyls in that. But if I can get one track, I really didn't know what to pick. Not My Sweet Lord. No. Which is still a bomb track. But Beware of Darkness, I think, would be a fantastic track. If we can only listen to one track from this album, I think it's Beware of Darkness. It's definitely kind of that, it's not very somber tone. It's more of just like a lesson learned, you know? It's definitely a feel of George just like talking to the mic, saying his woes, giving advice to people who are young, people who are old, just beware of darkness in life. And I think that really fits well to Life is Strange. But I can go on and on, but that's my final pick. That's my bias pick.
That's a great pick. It's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
We aren't any Beatles yet, have we?
Yeah.
No.
Wait, what was that?
We've not had any Beatles ever on Life is Strange.
I don't think so, and that's a crime. I think we should put Square Enix in prison for that, for never putting any Beatles track, not even covers for it. Like, come on, let it be. Oh my goodness, that album itself. I won't get started. Let It Be is one of the number 1 tracks.
They have like interesting music tastes. Obviously, the developers who work on this, because like with the Tell Me Why one, obviously when I spoke to Ryan Lott for Tell Me Why, he was a composer on that game, he was saying that the Dontnod team are huge Sonlux fans. So obviously that's where they basically drafted him in, because they were like, they went and saw him play live as well, and they were like so huge fans. And obviously I have to say I'm bad for this as well. I didn't know who Sonlux was at that time. I was like, oh, okay. And it's like, when you like kind of find out individual tastes and personality, like where people listen to music and stuff, because there's so much music to consume. That's like the mad thing. Like, this track, this soundtrack, if we said to like the entire community, put your tracks in there'd be so many different choices being like thrown out there. That I feel like even like with George Harrison, you put that on there, it's like, is George Harrison like, you know, how is that ever gonna be a bad choice? It's like saying,
exactly,
you know, like it's like saying a Metallica track would be a bad choice. Well, not really. So
yeah, and the Life is Strange game.
Yeah. It's mad. So my final pick, I had to do everything in my willpower to stop myself from picking Evanescence's My Immortal, because like that is just like the most pretty pick. Do you know what? Fun fact as well, once a girl said to me, it's the greatest comment I've ever heard. She's like, today tell me how you're feeling on a scale from 1 to Evanescence's My Immortal. And I was like, it was the greatest line I've ever heard someone say to me, like measuring my mood, because like, yeah, that's like spot on.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Another Evanescence, again, I really wish they blew up more in their time. They did blow up. Yeah. They did have that, you know, kind of stint, but they deserved more. That's all I'm saying. They deserved way more. But
yeah. So I completely agree. I've kind of like split mine a little bit here. So I think this is, and this kind of bounces off my first choice with Haley Williams, Fleetwood Mac. I want Fleetwood Mac on there, and I would specifically pick Landslide because, like, you know, Stevie Nicks' music is her vocals are like unbelievable. And Landslide, for me, whenever I listen to it, it's just like, it's a little bit more deeper and a bit more somber. But imagine like listening to that in the record store and like the pain that this character Alex Chen is feeling. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, this is like unbelievable. And I think like for me, that would be like my ideal pick. If I could have like a Fleetwood Mac track, it would be like maybe in this case, like Landslide, because I love it. And obviously, I don't know if you ever heard it, like Haley Williams did a song with Paramore called In the Morning. And she's only, I think she's mainly done it live, and they might have recorded it and released it as a single. But in the live version, she does In the Morning, and then she does Landslide as well. So like she goes, I think, like into the second verse, and then she starts singing a chorus from Landslide, and it's just, it's like such a cool fusion. I'm like, this is such a cool song, and I wish that they released it. Like I wish that was an actual song that they released In the Morning / Landslide and put it out there. It would be unbelievable. But I want that. My specific pick for this one was like a bit more of a hard-hitting, heart-wrenching kind of like song that kind of like hits home with the character, with the vibe of the game. So like that's where I've gone with this. The only one I'd probably go with is the 10,000 Maniacs, and it was Rainy Day, because like their music is so cool. Just like with the violin playing and all that, and it's a classic. I remember listening to it on Sabrina the Teenage Witch as a kid, and I was like, it got stuck in my head because they appear in that episode, and she plays they play 10,000 Maniacs play Rainy Day, and it's like it's so good. But yeah, I would have to specifically go with Fleetwood Mac and probably Landslide. That I would love to see that track on there.
I mean, any one of these tracks, I mean, I would love to see in the record store, but I would love to see how it's handled. I would love to see if like we can actually physically pick up an album and just put it on the track, and we only listen to like 1 to 3 tracks. I would love to see how the format is once we're going in there. Yeah,
like I think this is another part of the conversation that we should have in terms of, I think like, obviously it's not going to be like, I don't think you're going to be able to go in there and hook up your Spotify account and your PlayStation or Xbox and like start listening through music like that, because that'd be a mad feature to do, but I just don't think that's even feasible.
I would put, you know what I would do? I would just make Chelsea Grin, I would say listen to Chelsea Grin, and just Alex Chen is just like vibing with it, and just like, that'd be great. Chelsea Grin, if you don't know, is it's a deathcore band from Salt Lake City, Utah. So cheers to Salt Lake City.
Do you know what? Like in the actual store, I think you're only going to be able to listen to the soundtrack and the composed songs. And I hope that they lock you out of certain things. So when you go to the record store for the first time, you can only hear certain tracks, and then the more you progress through the game, you come back to it. Because I prefer that as an option.
Yeah,
so I agree. So I think that's going to happen. Do you know what? That I would love if they made a reference to the other composers on the Life is Strange series. Like they had like a Daughter album there, and they had a Sid Meier's album. That for me would be like, as a developer, I'd love those opportunities to put stuff like that in there. Just like the smallest of little details like that. Well, it wouldn't be a small detail because people freak out about seeing that. But like, I would just like to see that. It'd be like such a great nod to the series of like, this was a composer, this is a composer, this is a composer. And it's like, so I imagine like you probably go in there and have a look at some of the musicians and stuff like that. Maybe a Pisshead album from before the start, if they made any success from that game.
That would be so cool, though. Oh, that would be so cool.
Do you know what? I have a funny feeling that's going to happen. I know Webb is a big fan of Pisshead. He was before the Storm's co-director, and he's like, he always loves that. And I have a funny feeling they might even intentionally like put the album there. It's like, oh yeah, you know, we.
I mean, it could happen. I mean, what do we say that this is taking place 8 years after Before the Storm? I think we decided.
Yeah, we mapped this out, didn't we? It was I think this was 2019, that calendar. Oh my god, we mapped this out before you like jump on us. We mapped this out in an actual StrangeCast episode, like the timeline of like where it's at. So I think we're safe to say like, you know, Arcadia Bay is destroyed, all that other stuff has happened. But yeah, I would like to see those kind of like little nods. There's just something about it, but I'm really keen because it bounces off do you know when we were talking about the Zach Garris interview and like all the other stuff that can happen in it? Like he was like, "Oh, it's a mini open world hub," and I was saying like, I hope there's more to it where you can kind of explore and see things. It's not just a Coke bottle, and it's like, you know,
Yeah,
it's not that period of gaming anymore. And they might say it's episodic. It's not episodic for me. It's just a chapter based game now. Like I don't agree with the label at all. But like I want that kind of thing where it's like this is the thing where you can go into a record store and you can listen to the music. And it adds that extra layer to it. I don't like games where it's like, oh, there's a record store here. And it's like, well, I can't listen to any of this music. It's like, what a shame. It's what a shame you didn't put your soundtrack on here where I could just like put the characters' music on there and listen to it. So yeah, I'm keen on it. I'm keen to hear a lot of the, in general, my overall impressions. I'm really sold on this idea. I really like it. And my kind of open thoughts about the soundtrack. Obviously, I think they're going to do a great selection because like Deck Nine's soundtrack that they did with Daughter as well was outstanding for me. Like it's hard to kind of decide between Sid Meier's first one and Life is Strange and Daughter's one in Before the Storm. But I'd like it to have a very nice balance of song selections, which I imagine it will, and then a very nice composition list as well, because I feel like you need to balance it out with Life is Strange sometimes. Like there were points in the first game when I was playing it and I was like, I wish they wouldn't just use the track all the time. Like they use a certain track and it's like they had such great scoring at certain points. I was like, that's a scoring moment for me. But you know, it's subjective is my opinion.
I agree with you though. I mean, I can't wait to play the game. I can't wait to walk into that record store and just like find out everything that we can find out about this. But I'm very excited for this. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like we shouldn't be a dead horse anymore, but I think that's our topic. A great topic as well. Really enjoy talking about it. I love to hear your music as well and how eager you were for it. Adam messaged me before this. He was like, I've got like a visual kind of like showcase for this. I was like, very, very excited to see this. And obviously I brought it up as well because I know Adam loves music and I feel like it was perfect timing for it.
Married with me, man. Yeah, man.
But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed the latest episode of StrangeCast. Adam, where can they find you if they want to find more of your content?
Yeah, we also have a podcast, me and my wife, Games and Groceries. It's a video game podcast, but we also have another podcast, What's the Biz, where we just talk about anything. And we have another channel just called Evalt, which is my last name and also my wife's last name. And today we're actually filming the new video about why Oxenfree is such a good game. And I'm actually going to talk about Scientific's music in that game. So definitely look forward to that whenever it's done. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Oh, absolutely. Should check it out. Everyone went mad on Twitter for that when it was announced the Switch. So yeah, exactly. So like, if you're a fan, definitely go check out Adam's. Yeah, thanks for watching. Please do leave a comment, subscribe, rate, all that YouTube stuff. It really does help the channel. In the comments, please leave me your suggestions. I would love to see what you pick out. In the last video, we had some really interesting picks for characters you'd like to see come back, some fantastic ones. Please leave me your suggestions in the music. I would love to see what tracks you'd like to have on here. We're back in 2 weeks' time for a new episode. Hopefully some more news happens. Until then, you know, we're very excited for Life is Strange, and I need to find out an outro for this, official outro. But yeah, take care, guys. See you later.
See ya.